This is a story of the World Puzzle Center. Roxanne and I, from early childhood, loved puzzles like this. We collected them over the years, and Roxanne is going to start off and tell you about this while I try and solve this puzzle. This
Hopefully
is about
he'll
100
finish it.
years old, by the way.
George and I met about 15 years ago now at a puzzle party in China. We had a mutual friend that wanted to visit some of the factories that his puzzles were being mass-produced in. And I said, okay. So I put together a puzzle party. We had about 50 people there. And everyone was paying attention to our friend Oscar, but no one paid attention to George. So, of course, I had to go over and talk to him. For the next 3 years, we spent texting each other and telephoning, and, oh, look at that, you finished.
I'll put it back down.
Put it back together again, please. So we did this for about 3 years, and in 2017, he came to Hong Kong to rescue me. During this time, I was working at a university. George was retired, but I knew all of the manufacturers and the designers of puzzles and was visiting all these factories in China. So George came and he got me. Oh, very good. Do you want to give that to someone in the audience to try and solve?
See if you can take it apart. No, you.
There you go. It's not
one
that
in the
hard.
black.
Okay.
And after
We're
you
gonna
take
keep
it
an eye on
apart,
him.
put it back together.
Yeah. So George came over, and I finished off my contract at the university, and we talked about where we wanted to live. Because I was retiring, we could live anywhere in the world that we wanted to. Now, I came of age in Germany, so I have fond memories of this country. I wanted to live there. George said, how about the Netherlands? Because we've got great friends in the Netherlands. And the more I thought about it, the colder and colder and colder it got in winter. So I said, no, I want somewhere warm. George suggested
Miami, Florida.
which is fine. Before that, he suggested,
Hawaii, that's my favorite.
since I was living in Hong Kong on an island for 25 years, I didn't want to drive in circles anymore. I vetoed it. We ended up down by Miami, which is great because we've got family down there. So George and I bought a lovely house down there. And what we did was I was doing exam marking at the university, and I woke up one morning at 2 o'clock. I saw this house that I liked. I sent George an email, and then I went in to work. While I was checking my emails when my students were doing their exams later that day, he said, guess what? I bought the house. We liked it so much, we turned it into a puzzle. So this was our home in Florida. It was a very nice, lovely home. And while we were living there, we opened up our collection of about 30,000 puzzles, combined collection, and I put them all on shelves. And George asked me one day, who has the biggest collection of puzzles in the world? Because ours was pretty substantial. So he looked it up, and he found a guy in the UK that was selling off his collection of puzzles. He had between 40 and 45,000 puzzles. So George said, let's buy it. And so he called him up, and the guy said, no, we're not going to. You don't have anywhere to store it. Your house is too small. So we did what anyone would do. We went down the road, and we bought another house to store this other puzzle collection. The next day, we called the guy in England and said, hey, we bought a house for your puzzles. And so he sold them to us, and they arrived in Boca Raton, Florida, down by Miami, in June. I decided in September that year we were going to have a puzzle party. So we went through all of southern Florida, and we bought every Kalex shelf that IKEA had, and we had them mounted to the walls of this new house that we called our museum. And I unboxed the puzzles. Unfortunately, COVID happened. All right, so no puzzle party that year, no puzzle party the next year. But then at the end of 2022, I believe, when COVID was coming to an end, George decided he wanted to go on a world cruise. So we took a 6-month cruise and circumnavigated the globe. At one point, we landed in Tarquinia, Italy, and we went on a tour of an
Etruscan necropolis.
Thank you. It's a hard word for me to say. And the tour itself was fine. And next to it was a castle of sarcophagi, and it was a museum. Now, once you've seen one, you've seen them all. After a half an hour or so in this building, we'd had enough. I said, let's go. But George said, do you know what we can do? We can put all of our puzzles in one building if we had this castle. I went, I want a castle. So I stepped outside and I Googled castles for sale in Italy, and I found one. Now, he told me I was crazy. I wasn't going to buy a castle. Okay. So we went to dinner that night. After dinner, George said, hey, look what I found. I found a castle for sale in Panicale, Italy. It's the same one I showed him earlier in the day. So the next morning, when we landed in Livorno, we got off the ship, we hired a taxi, and we drove to Panicale. We had no idea whether we were going to see this castle or not, but we were doing what we always do. Well done. Fantastic. Give him a round of applause. Wonderful. So we got to Panicale, and luckily I was able to get a hold of a realtor on the way, and she got us into the castle, and on the 4th floor of this castle, we saw a puzzle. It was hanging on the wall. This was meant to be. That's it. We're buying this castle. So we went downstairs, shook hands with the owner, went to a restaurant, signed the contract, bought a castle, got back in the taxi, and went back to the ship. That night over dinner, our friends were asking, what did you guys do today? And some of the friends were saying, oh, I went to see the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I was in Florence, and I saw David. I went to the Uffizi. They said, Millers, what did you do today? I said, we bought a castle. Like, you're nuts. No, we bought a castle. Okay. So we spent the next 2 months, on the ship, and we contacted the people that put all the shelving in for us, and we said, those shelves you just put in? Well, we want you to take every puzzle off of the shelves, box them up, put them into
6 containers.
6 full-size containers, and take the shelves off because we bought a castle in Italy and we're moving. We had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. So we landed back in the United States on July 4th that year, and in August we went back to Italy. We signed the contract for the castle, 174 signatures each, and there were 9 of us in the room to sign that contract. It's an ordeal. So we now own a castle. Well, while we were there, I was walking around and looking at the space, and I realized that we are part of the Bella Arte program, which means we're not allowed to do anything to the castle. All we can do is live in it. Well, this causes a big problem for us because we've got to put up shelves to put our puzzles on. Well, next door was a hotel that had been abandoned for
12 years.
Yeah. And so we bought that too. That's what you do, right? And then we realized we couldn't get from the hotel to the castle without going outside, and if it's raining or, please God, snowing one winter, it would be really cold. So there was a little garage in between the castle and the hotel, and I went in both the hotel and the castle, which are now our property, and I looked and I found these wonderful old antique arches, and I went, I can knock this out, and I've got a doorway that goes through. So once again, we bought another piece of property, a garage, so that we could connect our 2 buildings. It's all done. Fantastic. We even got permission from the Bella Arte because they were pre-existing doorways. So now we've got everything in Italy. We've moved there permanently in April the following year. And we have a problem with where are we going to put our puzzles. So we decided we can't use shelves, but what we can use is armadios.
These are display cabinets.
I forgot the English. So the display cabinets are littered throughout the castle. How many do we have now?
We bought 87 of them.
Yeah.
It turns out that in Italy, these type of cabinets are no longer wanted because they're too big for most of the little apartments people are in.
Yeah. So these are filled with different types of puzzles. The castle has walls that are 14 meters at the bottom and 3 meters at the top. So it's really humidity controlled. So all the wood goes into the castle. We also have, some small cabinets that are put on the walls. Don't tell anybody, especially not the Bella Arte. These happened one day when we were on holiday. I don't know. I was surprised when I got back. And they hold all of the smaller puzzles in here. In addition, we have a library with 3 rooms, and the books are dedicated to puzzles, recreational maths, and games. And We have a lot of local events happening in here. We have people come in, talk about puzzles, but they also do things like poetry reading and other things in the community. In the hotel, we can do whatever we want because it's not part of the Bella Arte program. So what we decided to do was buy some shelves. And he got
5,000 shells. Well, now why 5,000? Well, if you buy them online, you go to China, it's a minimum order.
And each shelf is how long?
Well, each shelf is a meter long.
So if you're good at math,
You have 5 kilometers of shelving to put your puzzles on.
so we're not going to run out of room anytime soon. Now, one of the things that I didn't mention about Panicale that I do want to say, and I'm going to show you the shelves in just a minute, Panicale is a very small town. In the summertime, we get around 14,000 people a day come to visit. It's an old medieval walled city. And in the city center, all year round, we have 37 residents. That's it. It's a very small, tight, close-knit community.
You get to know each other.
And we've been very graciously accepted into this community. So this is just a corridor in the hotel that the shelves have just gone up on the week before we came here, so it's not populated yet. The next room here is filled with Rubik's Cubes. Okay, so you guys, I'm sure, have heard of those. If the puzzle, any type of a Rubik's Cube has been mass-produced, I have it. It's in this room. Okay. It doesn't look that impressive when you're seeing it here, but let me tell you, in person, it's incredible. This kaleidoscopic room here is filled with mass-produced puzzles that are made out of plastic. Now, a few minutes ago, I said that the castle was humidity-controlled naturally because of the thickness of the walls. In the abandoned hotel, which we are now calling our palace, it is not a hotel anymore, this is where we live, the walls are only 1 meter thick. So the humidity fluctuates a lot in there, and plastic puzzles and metal puzzles are much better off in here. I could go on and show you 1,000 more pictures of it, but it would be much better if you came to see it. In the World Puzzle Center, everything is on display. Our philosophy is display and play. So much like the puzzle we've got passing around the room here today, you can walk in, grab a puzzle off the shelf, sit down at a table somewhere and play with it. And hopefully put it back together again and back on the same shelf that you took it off of. Okay? Oh, very good, George.
Young lady in
Wonderful.
pink.
Yes, fantastic. Now, not only do we have libraries in the World Puzzle Center where you can come and do research, puzzles that you can play with, which is the fun part, actually. We also have a number of workshops. Now, George is the father of home 3D printing. He bought his first 3D printer before I was born. I don't know, about 30 years ago, I guess. And he's had them ever since. Our current workshop, his current workshop, he's going to teach me how to use them, has 11 3D printers in it right now. We also have 7 more that he has to hook up and move into the room next door to his workshop. He's very spoiled. He also has a woodworking workshop and, I don't know, other dirty man tool machine things that he has workshops for. So not only can you come and read about puzzles, play with puzzles, but you can actually make puzzles in the World Puzzle Center. And this is our castle. It's just a small one.
Everybody sitting here seems to like puzzles, so you're all invited. Just come, let us know ahead of time, and you can do any sort of research, or if you want to somehow you make your own puzzle, you can check out if anyone's ever thought that one before. Thank you very much for your attention.